Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, Season 11 is surprisingly refreshing considering how much the actual mechanics are leaning into pre-existing activities with slight changes made around them. But the actual results, the value of different things in the game has shifted, and the gameplay loop feels quite a bit different as far as what is worth doing for what reasons, and while this is going to feel quite punishing and limiting if you just do the same things that you always did, if you adjust and do the new best ways of farming, you can progress extremely quickly now in Season 11. Whether you're trying out Paladin and wanting to get into the meat of it and mess with as many builds as possible in proper endgame power levels, or maybe you're playing one of the classes that has been around for a while. Either way, there's a couple of very rewarding activities that I want to point you towards this season and explain precisely why. First is Nightmare Dungeons. There is a number of straight up new Nightmare Dungeon affixes, but they have also buffed a bunch of the existing Nightmare Dungeon affixes too. The result is that a lot of Nightmare Dungeons are actually genuinely worth running right now. Some basic sort of farming examples: obducite is a massive material sink for masterworking, of course. You get like 100 obducite from a good Infernal Hordes run right now, a few dozen obducite for a regular Nightmare Dungeon run, but the Herodric Strongroom affix on Torment 4 at least consistently gives like 2,500 to 2,800 obducite from that Strongroom chest if you hit full reward bonuses, which is comparatively a gigantic amount of obducite. Take that a step further, a much rarer dungeon affix that I have had is Treasure Breach. It fills the dungeon with loot goblins, and loot goblins for the most part do drop a load of obducite, and there's a goblin variant that specifically does drop extra obducite too, but I've only had one of these Nightmare Sigils drop, and I got around 7,000 obducite from that singular dungeon run. It's worth mentioning that one like this specifically would be even more valuable on like a Nahantu dungeon, because Nahantu dungeons are bigger, longer, and thus have more of the spawn for affixes like this that just make things appear in the dungeon, so the longer the dungeon is, the more opportunities they are to spawn, as opposed to something like a Herodric Strongroom dungeon affix where it doesn't really make that better, it just makes the overall dungeon longer. The Murmuring Obols focused Nightmare Dungeon affix has been giving me around 1,000 obols per run on Torment 4, which is a fantastic amount for the amount of time you spend doing it. There's generic, just sort of blue rarity gem reserve affix, which is just reasonably decent amounts of every gem type in chests through the dungeon. But there is also specific gem archetype ones that are a higher rarity, they are rarer to find, like specifically Diamond Reserve, or Emerald Reserve, or Sapphire Reserve, and these can drop an absolute buttload of their specific type of gem fragments, and I was in a call with Josh earlier when he ran an Emerald Fragments dungeon. He told me he got about 32,000 Emerald Fragments from a single dungeon run. So these are absolutely immense if you do have them. If you need gold, the Vile Splendor affix makes all elites have the new gilded affix on them, which makes them drop piles of gold. I entered this dungeon with 440 million gold. I exited the dungeon with 510 million, which is a really solid pile. Then there's things like even Materials Reserve that you might think would be a bit mundane, but this gives like 180 Forgotten Souls even outside of anything else, and that's almost as much as an entire Legion event, which happened much less frequently. And Forgotten Souls are a big bottleneck for Ancestral gear upgrading in Season 11. So that is one way to release the pressure on that valve a little bit. But the thing is, all of those are just very good, efficient things that you can do to make existing in the game easier and make upgrading gear much simpler as well. Then the Treasure Goblin affix is just nutty value in a bunch of different ways, but there's also this new Nightmare Dungeon affix that is exceedingly rare. It is a Mythic affix, so you know when you have it quite clearly, and this guarantees a spawn of a Mythic unique Treasure Goblin in the dungeon. Killing that goblin when you find it drops a whole 5 Mythic uniques. Yes, 5 Mythic uniques at once, and then also a bag that you can open for a Resplendent Spark and some legendary runes too. So this is absolutely insane value, and if you do get one of these, make sure you do it in a group. Share the wealth with others, let other people get that goodness too, because it is just ludicrous really. When we first did this, we didn't know what would actually happen, we just saw that it was a Mythic affix, so we ran it together, and we were absolutely shocked by what happened when we did it. Other Nightmare Dungeon affixes might be just as potent as some of those at least, but among the ones that I have tested, those are the ones that by far have given me the best results, and given I know that most people don't really focus too hard on Nightmare Dungeons in general, especially this season with the focus from the invasion activities being Helltide, Undercity, and Pit, you might think that Nightmare Dungeons aren't overly relevant, but I'm here to tell you that they are quite possibly more relevant than I ever have been in this game. Maybe even more so than the season that focused around Nightmare Dungeons as its actual mechanic. Craft sigils, look for these affixes, and then run them if you get them. They are extremely worth it. That said, that brings us to the other main thing I wanted to talk about having incredible value this season, and it sort of loops around because one of the reasons is that it can drop a buttload of Nightmare Dungeon sigils for free, essentially. and that is the Azmodan Overworld Invasion. Azmodan can be summoned at any time by interacting with one of these idols or the other invasion bosses here within his arena, and this will modify his mechanics as a fight. The chest that you open at the end seems to correlate to the specific wards a little bit. The Endarial chest always gave me Undercity Tribute as part of the rewards. The Duriel chest always gave me Infernal Hordes keys as part of the rewards, and Belial chest, well, it just seemed to give me a larger pile of overall loot. There was nothing particularly specific. The loot from these, though, is a ton of legendaries, a good few Ancestrals. Sometimes you get a number of uniques from them too, and then on a rare occasion, I'm not sure if there's like a specific mechanic that makes it happen, but I haven't noticed a pattern, so it feels random. Sometimes we've seen like 15 Nightmare Dungeon sigils, 15 drop at once when opening one of these chests. Sometimes we've seen loads of lair boss materials drop when opening the chests. It essentially just feels like there's a sort of hidden crit chance for a jackpot on the loot roll that can give you some sort of secondary material or key in large quantities. But no matter what, the value from these is incredible, and you get the chest keys from doing the invasion related activities. The one that you will easily farm a lot of generally are the Belial based ones, as Belial is just a very farmable thing because it comes from the pit activity, which pretty much everyone does have to do a bunch of at some point for glyph levels, even if you don't want to do it for XP farming, which a lot of people still do. And then you can use the corrupted eyes that you get from the Belial in the pit to open the Azmodan chest for a bunch of extra loot, essentially. A fun mention about the Endarial chest specifically giving tributes is that it can give seemingly any tribute from the pool of potential tribute options, meaning that it does include the Tribute of Titans item, which can give you extra lair boss keys, which you can then use to go farm more lair bosses, which is really nice too. But it also means that it even has a chance of having the Mythic unique tribute specifically, which still does work the exact same it always has. It is a near guaranteed Mythic unique drop chance at the end of the run for any player that participates in it, and of course you do need the United one to be able to do it together, but if you get that, then definitely do it in a group because, again, just share the wealth. Why not? There's no reason not to. Overall, all of the chests provide a ton of value, and this is basically just me saying you should go out of your way to interact with this mechanic rather than ignoring Azmodan or just doing it casually occasionally, not really thinking about it. Do the Azmodan invasions if you have the keys to unlock the chest. It is absolutely worth it. On the same wavelength, do your Nightmare Dungeons if they have any of those good affixes we've talked about, and then obviously just go and craft more sigils with your sigil power to try and get more good affix sigils as well. You get a ton of value from these activities and actively seeking them out, and the speed of your progress in the game in general will go up dramatically if you focus on doing these specific things. That pretty much does it for today then, everyone. Just sort of a PSA type of video telling you that these things are absolutely cracked for drops right now, in the hopes that it will help you all get where you want to get a little bit easier or just a little bit quicker. I hope you've all enjoyed this video then, everyone, and if you found any of the other Nightmare Dungeon affixes to feel overly powerful, please say so in the comments down below so that that knowledge can be spread out to more players as well. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.